Hi.
Hi.
Josephine, right?
Yep. Rabbi
Hi.
David Kasher.
Yeah.
Did I just say
Nice
Rabbi?
to meet you.
David?
Yeah. You can just call me David. It's fine.
Okay. Thanks for getting on the computer with me.
Yeah. My pleasure. My pleasure. You're a friend of Rachel's, I guess.
Friend of Rachel's.
Okay. Yeah.
I
Great.
was having some sort of spiritual crisis, and then this one girl's like, well, maybe you should talk to my friend's rabbi, because I just can't hide how Jewish I am, so people look at me and then are like, you need a rabbi.
Gotcha. Yeah. Fine. Okay. Spiritual crisis. That's what I'm here for. What can I help you with?
I don't know exactly. What are your thoughts on the orange on a Seder plate?
It's like one of those examples of Judaism constantly coming up with new rituals.
So you don't have a problem with it?
No, I don't have. I guess I don't have a problem with it. There's lots of different rituals.
I grew up with Judaism being a big part of my life, and then I backed away from it, or I participate in like a performative way. Like I want my parents to be happy, and like I still feel very bogged down with the ideas that I grew up with. Like my brother's having a really hard time, and I can't even believe, I feel like I have friends that would never talk to me again for saying this. He's bisexual, and I'm like, is he being punished? Like, is that why life is so hard for him right now? Because he also sleeps with men, or did before COVID.
You grew up, you're saying, in a family where that wasn't cool.
Yeah, and I mean, my understanding of the Torah is like that's not cool, except for women, because God is a frat bro who thinks it's hot for girls but forbidden asur for boys.
That's not the traditional interpretation, but I hear what you're saying. No, I mean, what was your Jewish background? You grew up in a religious family?
Orthodox, yeah.
Orthodox. I come from a bit of that background myself. I mean, look, it's obviously one of the most vexing ethical dilemmas of our time, and there's a range of opinions and interpretations, and on one end of that spectrum is no, it's not cool, and then on the other end of that spectrum is it's all fine. And as usual in Judaism, there's just a million interpretations in between. I guess I fall somewhere in the middle, in the sense that I'm not on the end that just says when something seems morally troubling, we just toss it. But my sense is that Judaism is not a literalist approach to text. That it's not about the exact meaning of the words, it's about understanding the context and the message of the Torah. And in this case, the Torah does say a man should not sleep with a man as one would sleep with a woman, but that law appears in a long list of sexual prohibitions, most of which have to do with incest and adultery. So in that context, when I read it, it really appears to me that the Torah is concerned with stable families. Even in the Talmud, the famous and kind of devastating words surrounding this is that it's an abomination. The word in Hebrew is Toeh. And the Talmud sees that as a kind of a mashup word, where Toeh is Toeh Atah ba. You go wandering off after it, meaning you leave your family and you go looking for that. And I think that what they thought that meant was just I want to do everything I want. I want to be married to this woman, and I also want to have fun on the side. The phenomenon of people who really can only find attraction in someone of the same sex, and more than that, the people who can build stable, loving family lives with people of the same sex, that's a new paradigm. The question is whether the Torah is speaking to that paradigm, and I guess I don't think it is. I don't think that your brother's being punished. I don't think that's the way God works. But it's difficult. It's really difficult.
What about bisexual people? Is it kind of if you can perform in a heteronormative relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to tell you that the Torah doesn't seem to have a kind of preference for the situation that would lead to children. That's the first mitzvah.
Ahead of I am Hashem your God?
Just because God says to Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply. So it's kind of the first thing that God ever commands.
Is it possible that God just meant it for them because they had to start it off and now we're kind of okay?
I do think that what God meant it for was for people who found themselves in a relationship with someone that they could have kids with. And then God, the Torah, is saying, yeah, that's a good thing. If you are in a stable and loving partnership, then yeah, of course, everybody's tempted to go off and do things on the side, but don't do it. Control yourself a little bit.
But then they had multiple wives.
Right, I hear that. But we eventually did away with that too. That's the beauty of the tradition, is that the words remain, but what comes from our interaction with them is always changing and shifting and revealing new things, new truths.
Shkoyach.
Brachati. It was nice to meet you, Josephine.
It's nice to meet you.
And listen, just, if your brother needs someone to talk to, it's not an easy thing that he's processing, but there are people who will listen compassionately. That's an offer. All right. All right. Take care.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.